look, the way we're going about training for endurance sports is compromising to your health. It's compromising your fitness progress because it's too stressful. And in many cases, with many endurance athletes, it's causing them to be in this state of what we call carbohydrate dependency.
What's up, golfers and multi-sport athletes everywhere? That was today's guest, Brad Kearns. I'm your host, Scott Dolly, along with Dude Spellings, and this is episode 10. Most podcasts never make it to double digits, by the way, so we're glad you tuned in to celebrate this milestone with us. Brad is a former sprint triathlete national champion, among a lot of other things. And this episode is definitely going to feel a bit like a multi-sport event. We dive deep into several topics, we race through others. Are you ready? Say it with me. We do it fast, we make it fun, so turn it up and enjoy this episode of the Pace of Change Golf Podcast. Hey guys, this episode of the Pace of Change Golf Podcast is brought to you by Taylor Brands. It's 2016 and it's never been easier to start a business, sell a product, or offer a service. But oftentimes the first step in the process, designing a high quality logo and brand, keeps many would-be entrepreneurs from moving forward. But what if you could design anything you need in less than 30 seconds at an affordable cost? Does it sound impossible? With Taylor Brands' online platform, you can. At taylorbrands.com, you can build custom logos, presentations, or even entire brands with ease. No hidden tricks, no pre-made logos. I've personally used their platforms a couple times now, and just about every other online logo design website you can find in the past. Without a doubt, Taylor Brands' logo building process is the easiest, fastest, and highest quality product I've ever tested. Now, I could easily spend hundreds of dollars on other crowdsourcing design sites, and unfortunately, I have. But don't make the same mistake. Try it for free today. You can go through the entire process and then decide if you want to make the purchase. And as a special offer to our listeners, purchase the professional bundle and receive a free social profile banner upgrade. Guys, that's a $25 value. Use the promo code PACEOFCHANGE at checkout. "25 years ago, Brad Kearns was in the prime of his pro triathlete career. It's 1991, he races 16 times. 16 times he finishes in the top 3. He racks up 9 victories, including the U.S. National Sprint Championship. Early in that season, actually, he was ranked number 1 for a couple months, and he ends up that year as the number 3 ranked triathlete in the world. Now, it sounds like I'm talking about Brad's glory days, right? I mean, this was a quarter century ago, and maybe you're beginning to think, is this a podcast about a guy who used to be great? And we're going to wax nostalgic about the early days of triathlon and, coincidentally, the early days of Speedgolf as we know it as well. Brad would definitely say his strategy in triathlons relied on his strength in the latter legs of the race. He was better on the bike than he was in the water, and he was better on his feet than he was in the saddle. And when you look back on the last 25 years of Brad's life, a similar pattern kind of begins to emerge. Now 50 years old, Brad is not only just as competitive with his peer group in things like the high jump, 400 meters, the 100-meter sprint, but he's continually excelling in all areas of work and life. As a longtime speed golfer, Brad recently shot 83 in just 51 minutes at the 2014 Speed Golf World Championships, good enough for 20th place in the pro division, and then he repeated that in 2015 with another 20th place finish. You see, the astonishing thing about Brad's life is he's accomplished so much, and yet his glory days are nowhere to be found. Now, since 2008, Brad has been deeply involved in a comprehensive lifestyle movement known as the Primal Blueprint. He's worked closely with its creator on several books, most recently as co-author of Primal Endurance. Coincidentally, I got to mention, Brad is also a fellow podcaster. He hosts the Primal Blueprint podcast and the Primal Endurance podcast, which I highly recommend both of them. And I'm not done yet. He's also the founder and executive director of Running School, which is a nonprofit organization promoting cardiovascular fitness for kids. The organization conducts events on campuses at partner schools in Northern California and Nevada. It tracks students' aerobic conditioning results against national standards and helps kids make healthy lifestyle choices and develop positive attitudes towards competition. And there's more. My goodness, there's so much more. Do you see what I mean now? The bright light in Brad's life is somewhere up the road. The glory days are part of a story Brad can't tell yet because although he's lived an inspiring, powerful, and vibrant life over the last 50 years, his best is clearly yet to come. This is one dynamic dude, and we're fortunate he gave us a good deal of his time to talk about his journey, his experiences, his take on golf, speed golf, and where he sees the sport we all love heading into the future. And guess what? Golf's future and its glory days are definitely ahead as well. So let's get into our awesome conversation with Brad Kearns. All right, guys, welcome back. We've hit episode 10, and we're on with Brad Kearns today. Brad is a noted speaker, author, and coach in the health and fitness world. He's been that for over 2 decades. He is a triathlete, was one of the world's top-ranked professionals. He is also a speed golfer, so we're excited to have him on today. And most recently, he is known for a comprehensive lifestyle movement called the Primal Blueprint. So, Brad, welcome on the show. We are excited to have you, and we have so much to talk about. Let's get started.
Guys, I'm so honored to be on episode number 10, especially up there with, I told you off the air, it's like, you know, we got Alan Phillips, Nick Willis, Rob Hogan as guests. I got to get my game in shape so I can be right there at the same, you know, at the level of your guests playing speed golf. So that's my initial goal right now.
Man, that's what we're all about here, is just making everybody kind of raise their game and take speed golf to the next level too. So, Brad, give us a history of you as an athlete. You know, as far back as, you know, when did you first start playing golf? Was it something you and your dad did? That's the typical story. And how did you get into running and, you know, being athletic? Is that part of your family history, or how did all that happen?
Oh, that's a great setup, Scott. You have no idea what's coming out now. Now, let me tell you this, and the listeners should go type in walterkearns.com. That's my father, and he is the #1 golfer in the world over the age of 90, bar none. He's a 94-year-old phenom who's had an amazing career in golf. He actually played in the U.S. Amateur when he was 19 years old. He was the #1 player at Princeton University. His brother was the #2 or 3 player on the team. So back in the early days, he started golfing in Milwaukee. And he's been playing golf for 82 years, and he's still going strong. And he's putting up, I think last year, he shot 17 strokes under his age. So he shot a 70, would that be a 76 at the age of 93, something like that? He shot a 71 at the age of 87.
So you're still trying to beat your dad.
Here's the funny thing. Like, I live in Northern Cal, he lives in Southern Cal. We played our whole life, just like you guessed.
Yeah.
And I told my wife, I remember the year, it was 1996. It was 20 years ago. And I said, hey, you know, I want to get permission to, like, I need to pop down to LA a little bit more and just take every opportunity I can to play golf with my dad, because he's 74 years old, and you never know when those precious moments might come. And so here it is 20 years later. We've played a ton, and he's still kicking my butt. And you imagine, like, a 94-year-old golfer just popping it down the fairway 97 yards and hitting another shot. He steps up on the tee and he bombs it. And he has incredible hip rotation, and he's always working on his swing. And, you know, he's just my inspiration to play this sport. And he's got the wonderful attitude. And one of his distinctions, you can look at all this on the website, but he played in the U.S. Amateur at the age of 19, and then he played in the U.S. Senior Amateur at the age of 67. Wow. So it could be the biggest gap. I'm calling it the biggest gap of anyone to play at national championship level in terms of how many years apart.
And how good you are for that long. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's playing, you know, this is 50 plus and he's 67. He could be the father to some of these competitors in the senior amateur. So he qualified. He went, I think it was in Houston, Scott, actually in the early 90s when he last played in the senior amateur. But he's also expert at hitting hole-in-ones. He's got 11 in his life.
11.
But, he hit 5 of them after the age of 80 in a span of 5 years.
Oh, man.
And so he'd call me up after every one. And, after the first couple, it's like, wow, that's amazing. Great round. And then like after the third and fourth phone call, again, this is in 5 years time. You get 5 phone calls in 5 years. And like the third and fourth and the fifth one, he'd get on the phone. He'd go, well, I got around to the 6th hole today and I pulled out a 7-iron. And I'm like, oh no, no, don't say it. Oh no. And it went in the hole. I'm like, what is this, man? I'm still waiting for my first one. I'm 50 years old.
I was going to ask you, are you still waiting for your first one? Because I am. My dad's had 8, and I'm still waiting on my first one.
It's phenomenal. Yeah.
It's not fair, man.
So,
it's not fair.
Anyway, that was a long answer to how I got in. I played my whole life. My brother Wally, who's he's 64 right now, and he's one of the top competitor in Southern Cal. He played in the state amateur in the first handicap flight and won a couple times. So the Kearns are golfers. I have cousins in Milwaukee that are all top players. My cousin Chris was a state junior champ in Wisconsin. So here's me, and I got my game in pretty good shape. I was a teenager. I got down to a 9, and I entered high school at Taft High School in Los Angeles. And I'm thinking, hey, I'm going to be on the golf team.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty good. And I went out for the golf team, and our high school, Taft High, was the state champions in California when I was in high school. So I went to the first meeting of the golf team, and here we had, I don't know if you know Duffy Waldorf, longtime PGA Tour.
He actually was up on the leaderboard last week in the.
Oh yeah, he's doing well on senior tour. Yeah, he was the number 2 man on the team. We had this guy Derek Goldstein who was state champ, and Duffy, they were like 1-2 in state. And I was going to be dropped down to the 6th or 7th guy. I wasn't even going to score, and it was just like so competitive that I gravitated toward running. And I think I had those natural endurance inclinations that allowed me to excel at a high school level. And I somehow drifted away from golf for that reason. I was I was really taken to the sport of running, and I know it's so disparate from golf. I mean, you can't get any different. But I got very heavily immersed into the running scene in high school. I was 12th in the nation in Junior Olympics when I was a kid in the 1500. And then I got 9th in the state in the mile. And then I went to UCSB to be a runner, and I got injured and sick several seasons in a row. And that drifted me over toward triathlon. So I enjoyed doing amateur triathlon level in college. And then a great tragedy occurred in my life in 1985, and that was graduating from UCSB and having to go get a job in the real world and wear a suit and tie and drive to downtown LA and work in a high rise for the world's largest accounting firm. It's now called KPMG.
Yes.
And so that career lasted 11 and a half weeks. And at that point, I just couldn't handle anymore. So I went into the office and announced my retirement from the firm. And my intention then was to become a professional triathlete because I did pretty well in the amateur level in college. And so I was so happy to be pursuing something like the dream, like you report with, pursuing the dream of playing on the tour.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter where you stand on the money list, but it's like when you're in the process and going for that dream, that's kind of the greatest moments of our lives where we can say, I am fully committed to this. I'm doing whatever it takes, and I love every moment of it. So I had a wonderful journey in the sport of triathlon, and I was able to be a pro for 9 years and compete all over the world. And my top year was 1991. I was national champion, ranked number 3 in the world.
Oh my God!
Had a full exposure to that whole scene, and was finally worn out by the age of 30 and had to retire. But it was a great run.
Well, man, there's so much. Let's get into some of the numbers, though. I mean, because I love numbers and that kind of stuff. So in high school, you were running the 1500, you were running the mile, and you were one of the best in the country. For our listeners, what were some of those times that you were running? What were some of your best times?
So my high school mile time was 4:19, and in the Junior Olympics, I did 4:06 in the 1500 as a 16-year-old division. So, it was okay, but the cool thing about running or even about golf is like, however badass you think you are, there's always someone faster and always someone to help you recalibrate and, and be humble and be just enjoying and appreciative of the competition. So, the time where I really found my niche, I think, was in triathlon, and I was just really well adapted to cycling right away, which sometimes is hard for people to grasp. And same with swimming. It's really difficult to compete against a college level swimmer as a college level runner. And so the swimmers had a little edge on me, but I found if I could get close to those guys and work so hard on my swimming to become a competent swimmer, then by the time you get to the run, you're always going to be a big old swimmer with the big lats bouncing around.
Yeah.
running's really hard to get good at because of the injury risk, where swimming, you can jump in the pool and you can swim and swim and swim and get better quickly. So
have you read Total Immersion?
Oh, I'm familiar with that stuff, and it's great to have that instruction and have people anywhere, being able to look at videos and do all the things that, back when I started my career in the professional circuit in 1986, there wasn't even any books about how to train. There were no heart rate monitors even back then. There were no energy foods. There was no power bar till 1988. So we were very rudimentary in our approach. But when I talk to athletes now, and my new book, Primal Endurance, is out, there's a lot of value to just having that basic, bare bones, intuitive approach rather than the robotic, mechanical approach that so many athletes subscribe to. And to their detriment, they get into overtraining spirals and they get far away from, their sense of the right workouts to do, and instead, ascribe to whatever the prevailing, hot training method is, or whatever their coach is telling them, or they get overly competitive in a training situation and, can't calibrate that intensity to make it come out on race day. They just end up driving themselves into the ground. So,
Brad, I love hearing that. We spoke to Nick Willis recently, and he said the same thing. We were trying to kind of tap into, okay, what's your formula for success? You've won a silver medal in the Olympics in the 1500, and he just kept saying over and over and over, I don't take supplements, I don't use caffeine, I don't use a heart rate monitor. I'm very in touch with my body. I'm very in touch with having a level amount of energy throughout the day. I eat healthy foods. If I feel like I'm missing something, I go find it in a raw food and I eat it. I'm not looking for that shortcut. I'm not looking for that thing that allows me to kind of, get ahead at the expense of something else. So it's interesting that you say that, because it sounds like that's kind of the path that you ascribe to as well.
Oh my gosh. And I'm glad you brought that up, because he wrote an amazing blog post, Nick did, and the listeners can go look it up. You just type in Nick Willis and it's some longer address, but he talked about how I think it's called Simply Running. I think that's what he titled it. And he talked about how he cut back on his mileage and he cut back on his gym workout training so he could spend more time with his family and recover better. And it was so simple and freeing, because the athletes get so locked into that overworking mentality where the more mileage, what's your mileage? Oh, you're training for an event? What's your what's your split times? And here's the best level in the world taking this more free-spirited approach where he's valuing like time at the movies with his family on Sunday afternoon instead of a second run, and not just saying lip service, but this is the fool that won the silver medal. So if you can't take that message to heart, we might as well just bang your head against a brick wall. But finally now here in 2016, the messages is leaking out that it's not about buying your blood lactate meter and doing all this scientific nonsense and your wattage output that the bikers like to measure, and even the heart rate that it's very important to monitor that training heart rate. But at the same time, I feel like the intuitive factors are more significant and more powerful as a guide and a motivator than anything that's mechanical or robotic. So, the ultimate expression of the best trained athlete is one who trains by his moods and his whims and his feelings. And that's sort of, people kind of reject that. They don't want to hear it. They want to hear about zone 4. And so on my phase 3 of my training in my secondary base periodization phase, I stay between zone 3 and zone 4 for 45 to 60 minutes. And then I escalate 10% a week. And it's like, blah, 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 blah. Talk to a real athlete, see how they live. And I had that good fortune of spending time around the best endurance athletes in the world for those years of my career. And you're shaking your head going, wow, these fools sleep in, they skip workouts, they turn around early. And it took a lot of strength on my side, because I was a competitive guy. I wanted to win. I'd do whatever it took to win the race. And I had to learn that sometimes whatever it takes to win a race is to turn around in the middle of a workout, say goodbye to your training partners and say, hey, I'm going to go home and sleep. I'll talk to you guys later. I'll see you on race morning when I'm rested and you're not. And that's an amazing breakthrough to have.
I'm 45 years old, and I'm convinced that I overtrained pretty much most of my life. So it's pretty refreshing to hear that. And I'm kind of now at a point where Scott and I we have the same coach, and he's constantly telling me, hey, no, slow down. Don't, you can only do 8 quarters. You don't have to do 16 quarters.
He won't just say take a day off. He'd be like, take time off until you feel good again. I don't care how long that is. If that's 2 days or 6 days, I don't want you back until you are 110%.
Nice.
It's amazing to hear that. But dude, I would like you to fill him and the listeners in on your history with running and kind of what, kind of where you come from, because I think Brad would like to know that. So would the listeners.
It's actually kind of interesting. My background is very, very similar to Brad's. In high school, I was on the golf team and the track team. I won the...
You should play Speedgolf, dude. Oh, you do.
I was actually a much worse golfer in high school. I was only on the golf team. I was like the exact opposite experience as you with respect to golf. Is like, we didn't have enough kids to play golf, so as a 17 or 18 handicap, I made the team.
If you fit the polo shirt, you can play.
Yeah. But track, I won state 2 years in a row in the 1,600 meters.
What state?
Texas.
Oh, my goodness.
But to a...
what was your time?
Much slower than yours, 4:47.
It's still fast, man.
Winning's winning, baby.
Yeah. Funny thing is...
there was no one ahead of you, in other words.
There was no one ahead of me. I trained alone. I was the only long-distance runner in my high school. And I won the 1,600 meter both years by about 200 meters.
Wow.
But... yeah, it's not, 4:47 is not, anything to write home about. Also, interestingly enough, my dad today is 74. So when you mentioned, that you wanted to, when your dad was 74, you wanted to play as much golf with him as you could. That's exactly where I'm at right now. I hope he makes it to 94.
Yeah, it's a gift to enjoy the experience of playing out there and the nature and the family and all those aspects. And that's one thing that comes up for me is like when you're out there in a speed golf setting, you get away from all that kind of frustration and over analytical approach that can kind of spoil your fun sometimes. If you have a crappy round, you see golfers not enjoying it. And I saw in Chicago and Bandon last year, every person that finished the round was smiling and ear to ear, and then couldn't stop talking about it for 2 hours on the patio out there.
Totally true.
Every little nuance and all the contraptions, everyone's busting out their latest, greatest bag operation. And it's just it's a wonderful thing to see. It reminds me of the early days of triathlon where people were fascinated with the equipment and the gear, and it was sort of a new sport. And I was on the starting point of, triathlon becoming a big booming thing. And so, hey, hopefully the same thing will happen with speed golf.
You mentioned there wasn't this proliferating, internet and technology and all that kind of stuff. And so, how much did you have to rely on the community aspect of the triathlon world? And what was that like? What was it like to be a part of that community as it was beginning to, bud and grow and take off?
Well, in terms of my own training, just like you, dude, training on your own is a really valuable thing because it allows you to self-regulate, and it's so easy to get overly competitive. So half of my career was in Los Angeles, and I was immersed with big packs of like the Tuesday night bike ride would take over the street, and there'd be 100 guys blowing through red lights.
Yeah.
Super intense. And it's like, if you got spit out the back, you were dead, man. I mean, it was just like, it was life or death ride. And then I'd go to the swimming pool and train with, I trained with the junior and senior national youth swimmers, like the best people in America. And it was just incredibly intense swim workouts and the track workouts. And there was always badasses out there to push the pace. And I progressed through the rankings, but I wasn't reaching my potential. And I was training as hard as I possibly could. I was sleeping as much as I possibly could. I slept half my life, by the way, during my triathlon career from age 20 to 30. I slept 10 hours a night without fail and I took a 2-hour afternoon nap 5 to 6 days a week without fail. So I was asleep for all that time period when
that decade went by real fast, didn't it?
Yeah, like those people that were partying their years away in their 20s. I'm like, didn't even see the light of the light of day. But I got to a certain point in my career, it was a little frustrating because I realized there's still some mofos ahead of me on the race course. I'm doing absolutely everything I can. I'm a talented, driven, hardworking guy. And what else can I do? And what else I could do was to slow the F down.
Wow.
Take better care of myself in terms of general health and my mindset and my attitude, and nurture my enjoyment of the sport by making better decisions and not being so caught up in the measuring and judgment forces of the outside world. So when I moved up here to Northern California, there was no one around here to train with. And so this was also at the same time I adopted the Phil Maffetone's aerobic emphasis training, where you're training at a much lower heart rate than you're usually accustomed to. And, and right away, I went out to the circuit the next year, and I had broken through to a much higher level, and I started winning races left and right. And they were easier victories than the 5th place that I'd fought hard and battled when my body was, not at its best at the starting line because of the training regimen was too extreme and too stressful. So that's what I write about in Primal Endurance. That's the title of the first chapter, is Slow the F Down, and bringing this presentation to everyone saying, look, the way we're going about training for endurance sports is compromising to your health. It's compromising your fitness progress because it's too stressful. And in many cases, with many endurance athletes, it's causing them to be in this state of what we call carbohydrate dependency, where they're burning too many carbs from overly stressful workouts. They're consuming too many carbs as a consequence because they're constantly depleting their bodies. And then, their appetite is high, especially for quick energy foods like sugar, especially at night when they're bombed out and depleted and laying on the couch. And so what you see is a prevalence of excess body fat among even the ranks of serious endurance athletes. So that's a thing that we're targeting with this new approach, and that's where the primal eating comes in, where it's like, look, eat healthy, natural foods, get rid of all that sugar and grains and all that crap that you're slamming down in the name of recovering from workouts, and make your workouts less stressful so that you're not constantly depleting yourself.
It's just so interesting, it's like the inverse with Speedgolf, right? Instead of slow the F down, it's speed the F up. Play faster, man. You got to get out there and you got to get more athletic with it. But, it's just interesting to me how we've got all this technology, we've got all this data, we've got all of these things that we can analyze and contraptions we can use, and yet, the mainstream seems to be going the wrong way in a lot of these places. And now I see there's kind of these revolutionary movements starting to happen out on the fringe, which is we've got to get back to the way that it was before. We've gotten off track. Less is more in the in the endurance world, and in faster is better in the world of golf. Even though you've got sports psychologists telling you that you need to go through the exact same routine every time before you hit a shot, and you need to go out and when you practice hitting balls, you got to go through your routine every single time, because it's not about a lot of practice. It's about perfect practice makes perfect. And it's amazing because I go out and pound balls as fast as I can.
Yeah.
If you're talking about the 10,000 hour rule, like I want to go get out there and do the 10,000 hours as quickly as I can. I'm not going to sit and wait 2.5 minutes to hit one shot. It just doesn't make sense. But
have you ever tried the Hundhausen training method on the range, where you run sprints between every shot?
I had tried that. I actually was doing it at Memorial Park, and they have this little wooden fence, and when I actually got injured because I would hit balls I would hit like 4 balls at a time, because then my heart rate would be back down. I'd turn around, run, and I was jumping over this fence and then running basically like 2/10 of a mile to get my heart rate up, come back and do it. And I kept jumping over the fence, and I ended up just ripping the heck out of my calf. And I ended up getting hurt for about 2 months because my body wasn't used to making that same motion, that kind of extension motion. But I did get into that for a while, and I think it's good to do it as part of the routine, as part of your training for speed golf. I definitely recommend it doing it sometimes, but every time you go out and hit balls, no, man, I get way more into Like the all flags, all clubs drill that Jacob talked about. Like I like taking one flag and hitting 4 different clubs to it, or every single time I hit a shot, like I'll chase the ball picker. I'll chase the ball picker and see if I can hit him. I will. I'll play golf on the driving range. So I'll take my driver. Then I'll put that away and I'll be like, all right, I'm playing the front 9 at Memorial Park. So, and then I'll hit 8-iron and then I'll hit wedge and then so I do that kind of stuff. But I think it's definitely a good, something good to do every once in a while. Get your heart rate up and try to hit balls.
Yeah, I think Christopher Smith is the guy who's taken this the furthest, and he talks about his context specificity, where everything you're doing in practice ideally will relate to your competitive setting, whether you're a speed golfer or a regular golfer. And that's had a great impact on me because I can come out to, the tournaments and play poorly. Like the first round in Chicago, I just couldn't get together on the first 9 holes, but I was striping it on the range like crazy. And it's such a common story for golfers, but it's like, I didn't do enough all out, completely simulated rounds in practice. What I did was jog a lot and, play a lot of speed golf, but my speed golf is jogging because you can't go out there and race like you're doing in a tournament.
Yeah.
However, once in a while or more than once in a while, whenever you can, you got to do something to simulate what you're actually going to face in the competitive setting. Same with the 3-foot putt where, the idea is to knock 10 of them in a row before you can leave the putting green. It's like, well, you never do that in real golf. How about make one for $20?
Yeah.
And you're going to go hand 20 to that golfer over there if you miss this and then go do it. Or like some guy, I don't know where I heard this, but the recommendation must have been one of the speed golfers in Chicago. I don't know, but like get out a sleeve. It was in a golf magazine. He said, get out a sleeve of brand new balls and try to slice one over a body of water or hook one over a body of water. So you got to shape the shot
or you lose the ball.
You're going to hit a brand new $5 title.
That's awesome.
I'm like, that's a great drill. I love that, man.
Yeah.
Put the pressure on. Yeah.
That is so good.
One thing that came up when you started talking about this stuff, I don't know what you guys might think about this, but our role models for watching golf excellence are the top pro guys, right? And they're so deliberate and they're so precise with everything they do because they're such fantastic players, and their margin of error and all those things are off the charts. And so we see them playing golf, but it has absolutely nothing to do with anyone who's over a 2 handicap. That there's no need to engage in 90% of that stuff. And I feel like most players, like, they don't even need 14 clubs. You only need a few clubs because you never hit the ball square on the face anyway. So what club does it matter that you're hitting?
Yeah. Listen, I may know more about this than 99.9% of people. I run a pretty successful skins league here in Austin. I have about 250 people on my email list.
Wow.
And we have skins games every weekend from anywhere from 25 to 40 or 50 people every week. And there's a handicapped side of the game and a non-handicapped side of the game. So because it's handicapped, we are very, very adamant about having accurate handicaps. And we actually, the city champion plays in our league. He's a +5. And let me tell you, the difference between scratch or +1 and +5 is bigger than you can even imagine. It's bigger. I would say it's bigger than the difference between a 12 handicap and a 6 handicap.
Wow.
For sure. Or 12 even and a 3.
Or, a guy who's in the top 50 in the money list and, someone who's, whatever, the next level below that who's not on the main tour. It's just, it's exponential. And so what we're seeing on TV, plus we're only seeing their good shots and all that stuff.
We're seeing the best players playing their best that week.
Yeah.
I mean, so if you look at average score, I haven't looked at this in a while, but at one time I compared like the average score of the last guy on the money list versus the number 1 guy on the money list. It's like 2 shots.
Yeah, on average per round.
It's
yeah,
nothing.
Yeah, but golf stands to make a lot of money, and so do sports psychologists, and so do swing teachers, and it's this whole entire economy that's created around a certain philosophy that requires you to, be more deliberate and spend more money and have more golf clubs and buy more expensive equipment. And so, yeah, it works for a while, but it creates this bubble that eventually bursts, and now here we are where golf is struggling and losing, 500,000 golfers a year now or whatever it is.
And every course in America is, quote, tiger-proofed.
Yeah, now everything's super long, and everybody wants to. It doesn't matter what your handicap is. You want to play from the tips, and So and then it's just funny to see how it's also interesting. I won't say funny, but it's interesting to see how then the major governing bodies want to spend all this money on trying to figure out what the issue is exactly, or they want to be able to make sure they have scientific data behind what the issue is. And what Dude and I have found in our discussions and in our research is that the USGA has really chosen to approach a golf course management approach to the problem of slow play and the problem of golf shrinking to a problem of golf course management. So not involving the player, but it's more the problem of how spread out are the tee times, how good are the marshals at keeping people playing? Is there a par 3 after a par 5? Is the rough too high? Are the fairways not wide enough? All these issues they think.
Where you put the pin.
Yeah, where you put it.
My goodness.
Where the fairway starts.
Yeah. And actually, even I listening to some of their talks and them being proud of the fact that they've been able to make all of these changes without asking the player to do a single thing.
Oh my goodness.
And hey, we've had success at shaving 2 minutes off of the average round of golf.
Yeah.
But then you go look at the R&A and you look at what the European Tour is doing now, and they've chosen to take, based upon their survey results, they've chosen to take a player-centric resolution to the problem, which is let's first of all, on the big tour, let's shame the slow players.
Which they did.
Over in the Middle East. Yeah, it's Abu Dhabi. Yeah, I mean, the number one player in the world, Jordan Spieth, was the first person to get the new penalty called.
And he wasn't the only one. There was 5 players total that were penalized.
Yes. Wow. So, so the European Tour's chosen to take a player-centric kind of approach.
The numbers on how fast...
Yeah, see, and they've already cut 10 or 15 minutes off their rounds.
Average 13 minutes.
Yeah, wow. So that's impressive. But, I just feel like it's such a huge opportunity. That's why I fell in love with Speedgolf from the very beginning, because I had personal experience in not being able to jump over that mental curb that is created at the highest levels with the immense amount of discipline. And I've always likened playing at the highest levels to essentially, it's like a kicker in an NFL game or the Super Bowl where they call a timeout right before he kicks, and it's called icing the kicker.
Yeah.
And I feel like every shot on the PGA Tour,
they're icing the player.
They're icing the player.
Icing himself.
He's icing himself, and So in that sense, they are amazing that they can go through that kind of pressure and survive. And those people that have long careers out there, I'm so impressed. But for 99.9% of us, dude, like you mentioned, that is just not the way to play the game. And so that's why I fell in love with Speedgolf, because not only did it solve my problem, it got me out of my head, and therefore my true potential came out. I have seen that time after time after time, week after week, as I hold these intro to Speedgolf sessions down here. I have 20 handicappers all the way down to 5 handicappers that are, shooting the best rounds of their life, playing Speedgolf for the first time.
You said last week you had like 18, 20 handicappers coming out shooting like 3 over par on 9 holes.
Yes. And just, they can't believe it. And they're like, I haven't had this much fun. I have been hitting the ball horrible for the last 3 months, and I hit the ball better than I've hit it in the last 3 months today. I mean, it's just testimony after testimony after testimony. And so, guys, we have this huge opportunity that stands in front of us. Hey there, everybody. This episode is also brought to you by another awesome, forward-leaning, innovative golf venture called Rival and Revel. We all look forward to that next round of golf, a trip with old friends, or a rare moment of pursuing our passions late in the evening, the sun's going down. Their goal is to make this valuable leisure time even more enjoyable, efficient, and relaxing, offering a variety of branded golf accessories, club head tech covers, and the one and only Silo Golf Club carrier. This product is a game changer in the golf industry, and it may just be a game changer for you too. If you don't know what the Silo is, press stop. Head over to their website, rivalandrevel.com, and check it out. Whether you are the super competitive player or the one that just celebrates being out there, Rival and Revel's mission is to help you make the most of it. Now, they've got a special discount just for our listeners. Use the code PACEOFCHANGE at checkout to receive 10% off your entire order. You know, Brad, you've been around speed golf for, a couple of decades now. Fill us in on your introduction to speed golf and kind of what the world was like, what the speed golf world was like back then with Jay Larson and all those guys.
Yeah, thanks. That's funny. The first time anyone heard about it was the miler Steve Scott getting in the Guinness Book of World Records for playing 18 holes in 30 minutes or something.
Yeah, 29 minutes.
Yeah. That was
oddly that was my exposure to it as well.
Right. So it was the early 80s, just for our historians, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. And he shot 103 or something, but he just busted around this course. And so one day we were talking about that, and my mom bet me $50 that I couldn't complete the front 9 at our home course, Lakeside in Los Angeles, in less than 30 minutes. And I was calculating like, yeah, that's 3 minutes a hole. That's pretty fast. I'm going to try to run really fast and try to do it. And so for my first speed golf round, I teed off, and I remember on the first green, I was doing the hockey puck thing, because I wanted to get the ball in the hole, and I didn't know how to play. And so I was like batting the ball around, and I took 4 or 5 putts. And then my dad shouted from the car, he goes, "Hey, don't do that. Try to make the putt. That took too long." And I said, "Okay." And I went around the rest of the course. I took 16 minutes and 45 seconds, and I shot a 43 with a quad on the first hole. So I'm talking about that's 4 over, right? For the
so your mind is just blown at that point.
Yeah, and so like for me to shoot a 39, let's say I'd got a par set, that would have been a great round, like better than my normal round at the age of, I was 20 years old. It would have been a fine round. And here I am stopping the watch on the 9th hole in 16 minutes and going, what just happened?
Yeah.
And of course I didn't keep my own score because I'm just running around. They're keeping my score, and they're like, "Brad, you shot a 43. I'm like, what? What about that first hole? And so it was the greatest awakening, and it was so much fun.
Awesome.
And that was 85. But then, years go by. There's no opportunity to compete. There was nothing until Bob Babbitt, the publisher of Competitor Group and, leading figure in multi-sport media forever. He's the god of multi-sport media. He started getting these tournaments going and a little league going in San Diego. But he had some great world championship events going for a couple of years there in 96, 97, I believe. And out of the woodwork came all these great players who were, mini tour level professional golfers. And we had some of the faster runners around, the triathletes. And we had great turnouts to these events in 96, 97, San Diego and LA. And I think we were trying to make this the new extreme sport. So like Red Bull was a sponsor, and we were trying to get a show on ESPN with the rock music starting it out. And, it was an effort to say, hey, look at this cool new sport. It was when like all the X Games stuff were starting.
Yes.
But here's the funny thing. If the listeners aren't aware of all the details about the history, the rules were a little different back then. So in the tournaments, we had our own caddy in a cart with all our clubs. And so what happened was it became this crazy free-for-all where these carts are flying around the course, dropping clubs for the player and driving ahead. And then you're hitting your approach shot and knocking it off the cart. And the stagger between players was only 2 minutes. So I remember in the championships in San Diego one year.
You got people passing each other.
Oh my goodness. All over the place. There's
playing with each other,
all over. Guys are getting hit by approach shots and sticking aside. Yeah, it was wild times with those carts going around. But it allowed people, the idea that Babbitt had was like, you can shoot a better score if you don't have to carry your clubs, and you can go much faster. So like Jay, one time, I think he shot a 71 in 37 minutes for the world record of 108. And that was a pretty fantastic performance, but it's a little different calibration than carrying a fewer amount of clubs. And it was so easy to run with, just one club or whatever your last putt or your last thing. But there was also the problem of like, the cart would fall behind you because the cart's not going super
Yeah.
fast.
I was gonna say, there's people followed me at my home course, and the cart is not as fast as a runner.
Yeah. So my favorite anecdote about that was I got to this par 3 at Morgan Run in the championships, and I had a 6-iron on the tee, and I got the 6-iron, hit a nice shot up there, and I got up to the green, and my dad, my caddy, he realized that he'd left the putter back on the other hole because he was constantly racing around and trying to restock clubs and give me the right club. So I was just on the fringe. So all I had was a 6-iron. He turned around to go get my putter. I chipped with the 6-iron, took it up to 3 or 4 feet, and knocked it in with the 6-iron for a par. And so that was like a glimpse of modern day speed golf with Tony from Sweden, who's playing with only a 6-iron. And it was something that we laughed about after, like, guess what I got on that hole? And all I had was one club, ha, 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 you know. But it opens you up and frees you to think, geez, you know, I hit a pretty good chip there, even though I probably wouldn't. And then I hit a nice clean putt with that 6-iron because you're in that zone where you have to concentrate extra hard and just do your best with the wrong club. And it kind of was a freeing experience. And I think today's rules are so much better and so much more of a pure experience where the athlete's on their own out there. So the funny thing was, like, back then in those tournaments, I was kind of the young guy, and there were some more mature players that were mid-30s, or Jay was whatever, you know, he was probably 40 at that time, and he was the number 1 guy. So I was the young guy on the circuit, and now I'm like the oldest guy in the pro field. So I'm like, wow, a lot of time has passed in life. And Jamie Dimon's out there. He's a 50-plus stud, too. He's a great player, but it's kind of funny to see me going from, 20 years later. But to me, to find the opportunity to come back and play and seeing this out of nowhere, I remember just seeing it on the internet in like 2012 or something, like, wow, they're doing speed golf again. How amazing. And so that got me really inspired to get in shape and prepare and get right back out there and get ready for that. My first foray back was the 2014 World Championships in Bandon.
That's another thing that you and I have in common is speed golf getting us back in shape. Scott will attest, in 2013, I was basically fat.
I've got pictures, buddy.
And but I'd always wanted to play speed golf. I had read this article in the 80s about Steve Scott, and a mutual friend of ours posted on Facebook that, his friend Scott Dolly had done well at speed golf. And I was like, what? Speed golf? I haven't heard about this in 20 years. I've been wanting to do it for 20 years. I still want to do it. So he put me and Scott in touch, and Scott drove up from Houston on one weekend and said, yeah, I'll come up and do speed golf with you. It's cool. I'll show you how to do it. And that weekend actually turned out to be like 37 degrees and raining. And
doesn't matter, man. You stay warm.
I
played with Christopher up in Portland in January, and it was 37 degrees with the slushy stuff.
Yeah, that's what we played.
The entire course there was no one there.
Yeah,
same
great time. Oh my god!
But,
and I wasn't cold. You don't get cold.
No,
That's
you
the
don't
thing.
get cold.
not when you're running. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But I was 35 pounds overweight, and
That's a lot, man.
Yeah, I was very heavy. I lost. So that was what. Was that in January, Scott?
Yeah, that was in January of 13.
Of 2014.
Oh, sorry, 2014. You're right.
So between January and October, I lost 35 pounds.
Yeah.
Wow.
And got in shape to do the Worlds. So yeah, speed golf got me back into running.
So Brad, let me ask you. So now you were part of this, this wave of speed golf that was happening in Southern California in the 90s, and Bob Babbitt. Couple questions. One, you think Bob Babbitt would still be interested in speed golf today?
Oh yeah, I just was on his podcast, Babbittville Radio, and we got to talking about speed golf. And oh sure, yeah. And I don't know if he still goes out to Loma Santa Fe. There was an executive course that was where his standing Tuesday morning outing was. But yeah, he's a great supporter of speed golf. We got to get him out to Chicago or somewhere.
How old is he now?
Babbitt?
Yeah.
How old is he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's the ageless wonder. He defies the ages of humans. Yeah. But he's, thanks to him, I mean, he basically grew multi-sport through his media efforts like no one else. I mean, no other, not even an athlete would compare to what he did and he did a lot for speed golf at the time. So
he doesn't have a sour taste about speed golf, even though it didn't take off in the late 90s. What didn't happen? Why didn't Speedgolf make it?
Yeah, it's interesting to talk about now because it's such a big topic of conversation for all of us. And I remember talking in Chicago to everybody, and credit to Rob Hogan for like making this his profession and trying to pursue the highest level of excellence in this sport. And that's one of the driving things that you need people at the top putting up those numbers and making everyone else marvel and seeing what's possible with the human potential. Same with triathlon. Like at the early days of triathlon, I don't think the pros were properly respected. There was no prize money at the Hawaii Ironman until we twisted their arm and finally made them cough up a few bucks. Many years after it was a huge thing on Wide World of Sports every year. But you need support for the best athletes. In other words, you need a way to make income so they can devote the time and energy necessary to it. Just like golf. I mean, professional golf has grown with the level of the purse has grown the level of competition, and now there's guys all over the world and all that. So in speed golf, we need that highest caliber competition, just like Alan Phillips said, like building from the top down or whatever he said, like MMA, the guys. And then secondly, not everything that gets popular has to be a mass participation sport. And I don't think we're going to get thousands and thousands. We're not going to convert golf to speed golf. And so if it's only a small sliver of people that actually like to do it because you have to be in pretty good condition, that's fine. But I think there's potential for growth when you make this an entertaining spectacle to watch on TV, just like the show you were on, Scott.
Yeah, Altered Course.
People that don't play golf watch that show.
Yeah.
And they have more respect and interest in golf and in fitness and all that just for the entertainment aspect. So I think one place that we could go, like my dream is to say, hey, Rob Hogan and Scott Dawley are going to challenge Rory McIlroy and Ricky Fowler to speed golf. And guess who's going to win the first time out? They're going to shoot whatever, 70 or 68 or 72 or something. But it's going to take a long time for anyone to perform at the level of the top speed golfers, even if they're the best players in the world, because it's a whole different deal. Yeah. But just having like a made-for-TV event like that where, Scott, you put up $1 million for your favorite charity if you lose, and then they put up $1 million for charity if you guys win. But anyway, something like that could explode the thing just as a novelty for people to watch and enjoy people racing around the course and making a fun show like you talked about on the other show with the clock ticking in the corner and all that fun stuff. Secondly, it'd be nice if more people tried it, for sure. And
it's cool to hear you say that, because my vision has always been, and what Scott and I have always talked about is, look, there's how many runners in America, Scott? Like 80 million or 40 million or something?
There's about 50.
So 50 million runners, right? If you could, and what we keep saying is, if you could just capture 1% of them to be interested in speed golf, you could have a legitimate sport, right? But maybe what you're saying is really the way to go, is that maybe, golf is too hard for most people. So maybe you're not going to get 1% of runners because they can't hit a golf ball. If they could, they'd be golfing already.
Yeah.
But they would probably be interested in watching it just like they watch biathlon on the Olympics, because they're runners. They understand
running is involved in that
sport.
Yeah.
Not many people do biathlons, but it's on the TV, right? I mean, it's like the second biggest spectator sport in Europe, biathlons.
I've heard that.
They have hundreds of thousands of people come out to the course and watch. I mean, it's incredible. Yeah. So I feel like there's a lot of ways this sport could go and take off, and
there are. It's like the chicken and the egg, because you got one camp of speed golfers that says we got to highlight the top of the sport. And then you have the other camp that says, no, you got to grow it at the grassroots and get a ton of people playing. And, sponsors aren't going to be interested until they see the right numbers, until they see the hockey stick going upwards in participation, and until some sort of economy can be created around the sport. And I tend to agree with both of them and feel like both should be attacked. But, there's such limited time and resources right now with the people that are actively involved, such as yourself and others that are being really ambassadors of the sport and trying to grow it and hold events. And so, but I like where you're coming from, which is, really we need to give that opportunity for guys like Rob Hogan and those who want to play it at the highest level. Got to create opportunities for them to go and, show people what is possible and just blow their minds with that.
Yeah, so if we back up a little bit and say, okay, you don't have to be a runner, but let's be part of this movement to speed up the game and have brisk walking brought back, or Christopher Smith's golf board he's involved with, where, but just making it a little more fun and departing from all those archaic and overly stuffy rules of golf where you can just race around and forget about the honor chip at the same time and putt at the same time, and just kind of make it so that you can get off work at 5 o'clock and go out to the golf course and tee off and play 9 holes in an hour and 15 minutes, instead of this, stodgy thing where you need a cigar, you need chips, you need the cart girl to interrupt your game and serve you another hot chocolate. And it's like, that's all fine and dandy in that corner.
And that's not going anywhere.
Yeah. It's not going anywhere, and the numbers were shrinking, right? Yeah. So, I just, when I talk to people about it, it seems like they're interested. Maybe it's just because I'm really animated when I start talking about it, like at a gathering or something where I'm like, yeah, what are you doing? Are you still doing triathlons? No, I don't do that crap anymore. It's not good for you. It's too hard. I do speed golf. What's that? And then I light up. But it seems like there's a genuine interest of people that are fascinated by the concept. And I usually end the conversation, if they're golfers, begging them to try 3 holes at the end of your round, go in, tabulate your scores, have a drink, and then go out at sunset and just try 3 holes. Because I know they'll get into the zone. The first couple shots might be bad, but somewhere around that 3rd or 4th hole, they'll hit one of those shots where they're like, oh my gosh, where did that come from? Mm-hmm. And it's right on the stick, because that's what happens to everybody.
Brad, one of the other things we're going to be experimenting with, and I think for your event coming up in April, which we want to make sure you let us know all about that, but is working with shorter formats. So I don't know if you've watched any of the videos I've done. I've done a series of 100-yard dash, and talking about being able to get a crowd that doesn't have to move, but I mean, getting stands, like imagine the 16th at, up in Scottsdale. Yeah. Imagine having that with Speedgolf, and they've already done it there. They've already had the caddies running, and it's so exciting. So imagine if during that event we had 100-yard or, a par 3 contest with speed golfers. I think that the crowds would just go nuts and crazy.
Well, back to Brad's idea about, having like a massive spectacle that lots of people would watch and get into. We had an idea, find a sponsor to put up whatever, $5,000, $10,000 for the first golfer that could play the last 3 holes on the Wednesday before the Phoenix Open. So you play 16, 17, and 18 in under 4 minutes.
Under 5 minutes.
Wow.
Which is possible. It's absolutely possible. But in most people's minds, they're like, no, that's impossible. You cannot play 3 holes of golf in 5 minutes.
I think you could actually do it in 4. Because it's a par 3, a drivable par 4, and another par 4, right?
Yeah. 2 minutes. You're close. You could get close. Yeah.
So 1 minute.
I think 18. In there. You need a birdie somewhere, and you can't miss the green. You got to hit all 3 greens.
Yeah.
And then I think 18, you have to run a little bit around, which might make it a little bit longer. But, just doesn't matter, being creative about that kind of stuff. And I think the traditional format of speed golf, which is the individual going out and playing 18 holes, and it's score and time combined, I think that's great, and that shouldn't go anywhere. But I think we need to start being more inclusive with, like 2-man alternate shot, and doing some of these shorter formats and having, match play where you just do 1 hole at a time, or you do 2 holes at a time, and you pit 2 players against 2 other players, and you stop at the end of every hole, and one team won or one team didn't. So you go 1 up or 1 down, I mean, these kinds of things I think are more inclusive for people playing, because they're like, yeah, I can run 1 hole at a time, take a breather, and I can do that for an hour.
And there's even people who are not in shape to even run 1 hole. You could do cart speed golf.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I'm going to have our pro at Winchester, where I'm hosting the tournament April 12th, and have him play the course as fast as he can in a cart.
Yeah.
And see if the pros can beat that. The pro speed golfers. Yeah, and have like a little battle with $1 million going to charity or whatever. Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Bring it on, man. Bring it on. That's good.
So, I'm hosting a tournament. It's been a dream of mine. I put one on in 2001, actually, in town here in the Sacramento area, and I had 33 players out. It was a wonderful experience. My my golfing buddy Bob Powers, his first time ever playing speed golf, and he shot an 81 in 53 minutes on a really, really tough course, Trill
Oh,
Bridges, which was as good a round as he was capable of in a full length course. His first experience ever in the sport. So he's the
nice.
defending champ, but I'm hoping to get a good crowd of real speed golfers that want to come to Northern California and play this top level. I mean, Winchester's the finest of golf courses.
So tell us all about it. Tell us when it is, where it is, how do people
Yeah.
can get involved.
So it's Tuesday, April 12th at Winchester Country Club in Meadow Vista, California. It's about an hour east of Sacramento if you're flying in like Scott, or somewhere in the Northern California area. It's worth the drive to see this magnificent course in the Sierra foothills. And I will boast and say this will probably be the toughest, if very close to the toughest run that we've ever seen in an organized speed golf tournament, because this course meanders through the foothills, and there's some amazing elevation gains and long distances between green and tee. And it's a very, very tough course. The Sutherland brothers played out of there for a lot of years and practiced there. Just a fantastic championship course in great shape. And the membership and the pro there, Jeff Podgorny, is really supportive of it. So, yeah, we're going to kick off hopefully the first annual of many of them. And I'm excited, and I'm going to try to beat Scott Dolly's record of putting on and hosting the event, and then also participating and coming in the top 10. So I'll have a busy day out there. Yeah.
So if people want to know more about it or get involved, is there a website or someplace?
Yeah, you can go to active.com, the race registration website that has all the services nationwide and all that, and just type in Winchester Speed Golf, or probably Speed Golf, and you'll find it. My website's bradkearns.com, and you can find more stuff there. But yeah, see if we can. It's also on the social media, on the Speed Golf. Is it Speed Golf International, the Twitter feed, or where do you guys point people to? Because if your show listeners go to your own site, Pace of Change, you have Twitter on there.
It would definitely be in our show notes for sure.
Yeah, so we'll get that out there.
Yeah, we'll do that, and as you know, we're soft launching Speed Golf USA as we speak, and so that's something we're very excited about, is eventually kind of coming out full force with Speed Golf USA, and we're working on like a 4-event Pro-Am tour, which we're including your event in there, hopefully, if we can get that done. And then having a national championship. I mean, there's 10 other countries around the world that have a national speed golf association, and we felt like it was time to do that here in the United States. So we also want to have our national championship. So these are all things that we are planning on doing. And so people can go to usaspeedgolf.com and sign up there if they want to get more information. If they want to have us notify them when speed golf's in their area, we can even assist them at their golf course and give the general manager or the professional golfer or the head pro a call and let them know about speed golf. So that's definitely an option as well.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So currently you're involved with something called the Primal Blueprint. I really would like you to walk us through that and walk the listeners through how that came about and kind of your passion surrounding that.
Oh, thanks. I've been long time health and fitness world, and now this primal paleo scene has become popular in recent years. And my old time buddy Mark Sisson, another former endurance athlete, he's kind of the leader of the movement. So I work with him to help spread that message, and he's written some great books, and we just co-authored a new book called Primal Endurance. You can find that on Amazon and everywhere else. Pretty easy to remember. But it's taking the primal paleo message, which is really centered around diet. Most people are familiar with the caveman diet, where you can eat the meat and the fish and the vegetables and the fruit and the nuts. So it's part of that theme, but applying it to the goals of being an endurance athlete and being healthy while you're pursuing fitness goals. So generally speaking, the big talking points are that the foods we eat today are extremely destructive at a genetic level to what humans are adapted to consume and thrive on. So we want to focus on the healthy natural foods that come from the earth and ditch the processed modern foods that are causing us to be tired, fat, sick, and in poor health. And those are namely sugars and even grains, because we eat all these processed grain products that we're not genetically adapted to eat. and they're really high in carbohydrates, which causes a lot of insulin production, which causes a lot of fat storage. So when you clean up your diet and you focus on those nutritious foods, and you can call it, the plant-based diet, people, no one's in disagreement about that. We're also on the side of saying, hey, look, humans have eaten meat for 2.5 million years.
Yeah.
And so don't tell us that, we shouldn't eat an egg because there's too much cholesterol. The egg's one of the healthiest foods on the planet. So it's kind of getting back to this now being more popular, more validated by science, saying, yes, these nutritious foods are good for you, and the processed grains and the bad oils that come in all the processed products and the vegetable oils that we consume in excess are inflammatory and are directly linked to cancer and all these other problems. So the diet part is pretty well known. I'd say most listeners are probably nodding their head knowing those basics. The thing that I like to emphasize, especially to your audience that likes endurance, obviously, because they're playing speed golf, is, like we talked about at the start of the show, the way we go about our endurance training is deeply flawed and is at high risk to your health because it's too stressful. So if you emphasize your aerobic development, or development of your aerobic system and your ability to burn fat as a fuel during exercise, as opposed to when you push yourself too hard, and the higher your heart rate goes up when you're doing a sustained cardio workout, the more percentage of glucose you burn to fat. And so you get into this state where you're good at, let's say, going out there and putting out medium to difficult intensity training sessions. But if you look at a big picture, you're aerobically deficient, so you're not that fast. But you're pushing yourself and you're working hard day after day. And basically what you're doing is you're fine-tuning a small engine. So you're tweaking your Volkswagen in your front, on your front lawn, trying to get it a little faster with a new spark plug or whatever. And then the analogy on the other side is that you're taking the time and the patience to build this big engine, an aerobic engine where you're good at burning fat, and you don't get tired at various paces. You're more efficient, so you can continue without getting tired and running out of energy. And that's the difference between an elite athlete, how do these guys run a marathon in 2:02?
Yeah.
It's because they're really, really efficient aerobically, such that a 5-minute mile is equivalent, literally metabolically equivalent to one of us jogging through the park or running a 9-minute mile or whatever that equivalent is on the heart rate range. So the way you get fit for endurance sports is to build your aerobic base with comfortably paced training that is not interrupted by high stress workouts that cause too much recovery time and too much flowing of stress hormones, too much production of lactic acid in the muscles, and cause extended recovery time, muscle soreness, stiffness, tightness, fatigue, burnout, illness, injury, all the things that endurance athletes traffic in and absolutely don't have to. They can build and build and build and feel good and energetic and energized after workouts rather than slightly fatigued and slightly craving sugar or extremely craving sugar if you're really going overboard.
Okay, from a endurance athlete's perspective here, I feel like if I don't go to the track and I don't leave everything out on the track, that I'm not going to make gains as fast as I would if I'm out there only putting out 75% or whatever. Tell me why putting out 75% is going to make me get faster at a faster rate than leaving it all out on the track.
Yeah, good question. All right, that's great. Now, if you're trying to compete at 100 meters or 400 meters, your training is going to be more anaerobic in nature. But if you're trying to do anything beyond, let's say, a mile, and by the way, if you look at this is exercise physiology text. This is not Brad speculating. The crossover point, like 50-50 aerobic to anaerobic, is a 1 minute and 15-second effort. That's 50-50.
So you're talking 400 meters, basically.
Yeah, a mile is something like 70-30 in favor of aerobic. And a 1 hour competition, which we know if you're in good shape, you can bang pretty hard for an hour running or cycling a time trial. Sure. It's 98% aerobic. So 98% of your energy production is coming from the aerobic energy systems of your body, the oxygenated energy systems of your body, versus anaerobic means without oxygen. So that's the true firing of those fast twitch muscle fibers to go once around a track or 100 meters down the road. So anyone who's interested in endurance is going to get massively exponential return on investment from building their efficiency and improving their aerobic efficiency at a slow pace. And the heart rate that we dictate as the gold standard here is Phil Maffetone's assertion that you should be training at 180 minus your age.
And that's 180 beats a minute for everybody.
It's just the number 180 minus your age, right? 100. So it's whatever that is. So like I'm 50, 180 minus 50. My maximum aerobic heart rate is 130. My aerobic training heart rate. It has nothing to do with your max heart rate. And we're so familiar with calculations based on your max heart rate, like 220 minus your age, or the new formula that's more accurate is 0.8 times 220, blah, blah, blah. It's like, we don't care what our max heart rate is. We want to know, where's that crossover point where you switch from entirely comfortable and burning mostly fat into a little bit of a drift into a slightly anaerobic, slightly stressful workout. And when you traffic in what we call the black hole, that's when you're going a little bit too hard. You still feel fine. It's not super strenuous. You're not dying like you're doing an interval workout or something, but you're training the wrong energy systems and you're paving the way to the burnout, injury, illness, fatigue, excess body fat that endurance athletes sport because they're going a little bit too hard, too often with insufficient rest and recovery. So when you get on a heart rate monitor program and you realize just how damn slow that is to go 180 minus your age,
tough, man.
it's laughable. It's laughable.
It is.
But go talk to Nick Willis and go jog around a golf course with him the night before the Speedgolf in Chicago, and he's running a 6-minute mile or something like that. But guess what?
He's jogging.
He's going 180 minus his age. He's going at a heart rate of 123 or something. And if you were running with him, you'd be at 167 going, so what's it like to run the
so that's
quite nice, mate. It's really great. It's a totally different metabolic experience. But here's the thing that we have to understand. It's relative. So for Nick Willis, that's an easy training session. That's his bread and butter. So if he runs whatever, 70, 80, 90 miles a week or whatever the top middle distance guys, most of that time is spent at a conversational, extremely easy pace where they're building without that interruption from stress. So when you go out to the track, you know, that should be the icing on the cake of this really fantastic aerobic base. And so that's what it is for someone who's an elite athlete. But for everyone else, there's so much more room for improvement to be had. So if you go out and do an aerobic test, we call it like, hey, let's set your math heart rate. Mine's 130, and I go and run 8 laps around my local track. So I'm always going to do the same course. 8 laps around the track. I'm going to try to keep my watch exactly at 130 as close as I can. It's going to pop around 131, 133, 129. You try to keep that heart rate the same, and then you check your time. And over a period of weeks and months, what's going to happen is you're going to lower that aerobic performance test time, indicating that you're becoming more efficient aerobically. And in the book, Primal Endurance, we talk about the greatest triathletes of all time, Mike Pigg and Mark Allen. When they first started with this training method, they were aerobically deficient. Even though they were the top athletes in the world and able to bang out 2 hours at high intensity race pace, they couldn't do very well running at 155 heart rate for them. They were in the 7 minute to 8 minute mile range, but with devoted work over years and years, pretty soon Mark Allen got to where he could do a maximum aerobic performance test in a 520 mile. A 520 mile at aerobic, conversational, easy breezy pace. And therefore, if he can do that in training, that means he can get off the bike and run 450s and kill everybody and win the championships. So we're talking about making these huge improvement chunks in your aerobic functioning such that you can translate that to when you do want to do a speed workout once in a while, you'll get some great benefit from that. But it's not until you're efficient aerobically. Otherwise, you're fine-tuning that small engine rather than building a bigger engine.
All right, Brad, so you've got to translate that for the speed golfers out there now and let them know if they want to train, if they want to use speed golf as a way to get more in shape. How are they going to go out and play 9 holes if they're going to do that, let's say, once or twice a week? You know, what's that going to look like for them?
Good question. I think it depends on your base fitness level and how much training you're doing and your experience. But if you're really, really fit and you want to go out once a week and go at simulated competitive round pace, that's going to be way over your aerobic heart rate, right? Especially if you're only doing 9 holes or something. And you'll get a nice training effect from that. But you also, it's very difficult to sustain that type of training program where you're hitting it hard even a couple times a week. And some rule of thumb that the elite athletes have gone by is, only 10% of their mileage is above aerobic for a distance runner. Middle distance, long distance, Galen Rupp, whoever, it's just that they're running 5-minute miles and they're aerobic or whatever. So it's hard for us to comprehend that.
It's blowing me away. I mean, I cannot comprehend it.
Well, you need to go all the way back to 1960, and the New Zealand runners, Arthur Lydiard, Peter Snell, these were the first people to introduce over-distance training to the Olympic events, the middle distance events. And Peter Snell was famous for training 100-mile weeks in the sand dunes of New Zealand and running those strength workouts up and down the hills. And then he stepped onto the track for the first time and destroyed the world record at 800 meters running a 1:44 in 1960.
In the 800?
This has been proven. This is the way that elite endurance athletes train in every endurance sport for the last, how many years is that? 55 years. But the average recreational athlete blatantly disregards the fundamental science of how to get good at endurance training. Swimmers, Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps trains 5 hours a day at aerobic heart rates mostly to prepare for his 1, 2, 3, 4-minute event. Lance Armstrong and all the Tour de France cyclist guys train for hours and hours and hours on the bike.
At a conversational pace.
At a conversational pace, because you can't do it otherwise. You'll burn out. And the runners, especially because running is such a difficult sport, the average recreational runner is running at too elevated of a heart rate. They're in this black hole zone all the time, and they wake up a year later, and they're injured, they're fat, they're burnt out, they're tired, and they haven't improved. And by the way, the performances aren't too impressive for, in generally speaking terms, if you're making this huge commitment to your marathon training and you're coming across the line in 4 hours and 27 minutes, that's not that good, man. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. But, in the old days, like 3 hours made you a legit runner, and anything over that was like, oh, so you're a jogger. And now it's like, because there's so many people in it, we've upped our standard, or we've lowered our standards to say like, wow, congratulations, you're really fast. But it's actually, there's way more potential for success in endurance sports if you can lower that aerobic function time. You can improve that aerobic function time to go faster and faster and still be aerobic. And so what you're building is this higher platform from which to launch from when it is time to introduce high intensity workouts, which, they improve you very quickly, but most people aren't ready for them. They aren't capable of absorbing those high intensity workouts. So they just kind of get stiff and sore and tired and drag in a downward spiral and have a bad year and a good year, or a bad month and a good month, or suffer the extreme setback of an injury. You lose a lot of fitness when you get injured, period. Yeah. So, or sick or whatever. So
if I'm hearing you correctly, what you're telling me is I'm going to get a lot more benefit from running 7 miles 3 days a week at a 9-minute pace than I would running those same 3 days at a 5K at a 6-minute pace.
Oh, sure. And any runner can realize that it's not about how hard you can push down the gas pedal. You got to be smart about it. Any runner wakes up and finds that out in the first 90 days. First 90 days, everything works. So Scott says he wasn't a runner, he was a golfer, he came in and got excited about the sport. You start training, you can do anything for 90 days and you'll be great and you'll lose weight and you'll be flying along. And then it's like, oh crap, I'm injured, I'm sick, I'm slowing down, I'm tired, I'm stiff,
I'm irritable, overtrained.
All that stuff. Yeah. So when you slow down and be good to your body and notice, that's why I mentioned the 8-lap running around a track 8 laps. You can get concrete proof that this is working. Because if you can lower that time and become more efficient, guess what happens when it's time to run a mile time trial? Let's say if your coach wants to see where you stand in terms of your absolute, maximum performance, or go out to the golf course and run 5 miles at a fast pace to do a speed golf tournament. Yeah. And you'll surprise yourself by feeling, how strong and fluid you feel when you've taken the time to respect your body and build a proper aerobic base. Yeah.
I like it, Brad. I really like it, and I've definitely learned a lot about that. I think it's something to look more into, and I think that people should look into y'all's program and Primal Endurance. Then you've got, it's so funny because then you've got Brian McKenzie and CrossFit Endurance, which is seems like the whole other end of the spectrum, which is let's only work 20 minutes a day
Although
as hard as
the
we
diet
can.
part is the same, right?
CrossFit people are really big on paleo, and all those things are really well thought out. And I have a lot of respect for people that can figure out that squats and box jumps have a direct application to your marathon success.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all in favor of that stuff. That's really cool. And it's true because you can go into a CrossFit endurance workout or whatever simulated type of thing where you're doing heavy loaded stuff. And it's like getting you to mile 20 on your run. And it's like, it's hard to get to mile 20 and then get that training effect of running that final 6 miles. You can't go do that 4 days a week. Sorry. No. But you can go into a gym and do a 20-minute workout with heavy squat bar on your back, and you're putting your muscles under that same experience where you're trying to preserve form as you fatigue as a distance runner. So it has a really important role in the total package of becoming the best endurance athlete you can be. However, if you have a crappy base, it's no sense going in there because you're, again, fine-tuning that crappy engine rather than building. So in Primal Endurance, the thing we present is like a periodization program where you take some time of the year to just build a base and stay out of the gym and stay away from the intense workouts and don't do any intervals and don't do not even a minute of any workout exceeding that heart rate. Because once you exceed the heart rate for a little, like cyclists like to race to the top of the hill and then resume their easy pace for the next 3 hours. And even those short duration of high intensity efforts, it ruins you. It ruins the workout effect because the lactic acid's still in your bloodstream, the stress hormones have spiked, and it's hard to get back to comfortable low stress workout.
Well,
so
once you cross over, you can't recover.
Right. So once you build a base and you've gone for months and months, I mean, we like to say 8 weeks minimum, but I'd love to see people go 3 months, whatever. Then when you step into the gym and do those squats and box jumps and whatever the high intensity session you choose, I like to do 100-meter sprints. So my training for Speedgolf, just as an aside, is I jog every day, really, really, really slow at 130 heart rate or less. I don't know what minute per mile. It's probably a 9-minute mile or a 10-minute mile or something embarrassing where everybody's passing.
So humbling, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm watching my heart, and it's a very, very comfortable workout. So I do that every day, and most of my Speedgolf sessions are really trying to keep it under 130. Sometimes I bump up on a hill, or because you're breathing hard when you swing. I didn't realize this till I wore a watch on the course. You jog or whatever, you keep your heart rate, and then you swing, and you look at your heart rate. It's like, oh, crap, my heart rate just got elevated after a 10-second stop. That's not good. So I'm taking most of my Speedgolf rounds really easy, all my jogging in the morning with my dogs really easy, and then once every 7 to 10 days, I'll go and do 6 times 100-meter sprint all out.
And that's the other thing, Brad, is that's not intimidating to most people. You talk about you talk to people who are wanting to get in shape. Most of what they're seeing out there is, no pain, no gain. You got to go out, you got to hurt yourself.
And, you got to vomit after every workout.
Yeah, you need to vomit, and that's how you're really going to get in shape, and that's how, you're going to make a difference in your life. And I just love to hear this idea of you just get out there and go relax and jog and have a conversation with somebody. Invite a friend out and just go elevate your heart rate, take your dogs out, go enjoy the sunset or whatever it is, and you'd be amazed over time, because we live in this culture where I want to see a difference by the end of the week or I quit, but it's committing to a lifestyle of health and wellness, and that's something we're also passionate about as well.
One other thing to remember is even a devoted endurance athlete who's training correctly and watching their heart rate or whatever they're doing, and they're training 10 hours a week or 15 hours a week. You know how many hours in a week? There's 168. So if you're training, even a devoted endurance athlete who's putting in a dozen hours a week, that means you're sitting on your ass for most of your time in your life. And that does not make for a very resilient athlete for any sport, endurance sport, pick up basketball, golf, swinging the stupid golf club, anything. So there's that other element besides your training and getting that dialed is to just move more in daily life and take walks and take breaks from work and stretch at your desk or get into a stand-up desk experience or any number of things where you can, haul off a set of squats while you're in your office taking a break between recording podcasts or whatever,
Yeah, Alan said something in his podcast. He said motion is lotion. Like, if you work in an office 8 hours a day, you got to get up every half hour and just move those joints and stretch and walk to the water cooler or go to the restroom or whatever, but just get up and move around.
Yeah, for me, it's stretching. I get up. I try to at least one time before lunch and one time after lunch, more if I can do it. We have a little workout room. Just go in there and stretch and foam roll and
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you, you guys have a podcast, don't you, Brad?
Yeah, Primal Endurance Podcast. You can check that out on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And I always try to sneak Speedgolf, and even though it's for the general audience of endurance athletes and primal enthusiasts, there's always some, chance to talk about Speedgolf. And even in the Primal Endurance book, it's kind of funny because, Christopher Smith's in there, Hogan's in there, Nick Willis is in there, Brad Kearns, the speed golfer stories in there. So if speed golfers are interested in a book that's honoring your sport and also talking about how to train for endurance in general properly and eat healthily, there's a lot of love for speed golf in my book. So I dig that. Yeah. And on the podcast, Rob Hogan's been on there, and we talk exclusively about his remarkable story about how he became fat adapted as an athlete. So it's really good listening. If you want to go jump over that podcast and search directly for that show, it's a mind-blowing story, and I detail it in the book also.
Nice.
Brad, any other podcasts? I don't know if you're a big podcast junkie. I happen to have listened to a lot of them, and maybe people listening are or aren't, but any other endurance-related, fitness-related podcasts that you enjoy listening to?
In general, it's such an interesting emerging media, and I feel like it's probably the easiest way for an expert to convey their message, because if you had asked me to write an article about whatever, it's going to take about 3 years to get across what we talked about on this show. I mean, seriously.
No,
and
absolutely.
then secondly, all of us, many of us are engaged with our eyeballs all day long looking at a screen, but there's some time where, we have more time for audio, I think, than to read more and more stuff. And like, I like to listen to podcasts at 1.5 speed, because when you're at 1.5 speed, you can listen to more podcasts, and a lot of times you don't miss anything. But if the people are listening at 1.5 speed, I recommend listening at regular speed so you don't miss anything, because it's
I've done that too.
Yeah. It's good when you're at 1.5 speed. I always try to throw that into. So, we have the Primal Blueprint podcast, which is more about primal living in general. We have experts on a variety of topics, and then the Primal Endurance, kind of the spin-off channel, is specifically for endurance sports. And there's a new podcast called Pace of Change, and it's really cutting edge stuff. And
Bring it on. Awesome. I'll tell you a couple of the guys. I don't know if you know a guy by the name of Rich Roll. Are you familiar with him? Yeah. So I listen to Rich Roll's podcast. He's really great. There's another one called Endurance Planet.
Yeah, she's been on my show, and I'm going to go on her show pretty soon, and she's hitting it hard. She's got good stuff. Yeah.
I don't know her at all, but I just am so attracted to her energy on that podcast and the guests that she has on.
It's real. That's the best part.
Totally real. Yeah. Well, Brad, we're going to let you go, man. I feel like we killed it, man. We had a great time today, and we look forward to having you back on. How else can people follow you, stay in touch with what you're doing? If they're interested in getting more involved, give them a few places on social media, maybe an email address or something that they can reach out to you.
Yeah, go check out bradkearns.com. That's simple, and you can click over to all the primal things, and it clicks right to our books. And that's my name, BradKearns.com. And I have Twitter and Instagram, and they're riveting pictures of like my meals or my dogs usually on Instagram. So if you're really bored and you want, I also have some fun YouTube videos, and I think speaking of creativity and trying to grow the sport, what's really cool now is like we have all these different outlets to communicate. So if we can't get Speedgolf on one of the 3 network channels, who cares? We could film it and put it up on our own YouTube experience. And, it's a way to grow the sport and get a direct relationship with audience that like our stuff, just like with your podcast.
Absolutely. I think that's the future for the sport right now, is to not continually hope for and wait on the big networks to come and start to cover this. I mean, we can have videos go viral. We don't need to wait on that. And so that's something we definitely plan on doing, especially now with the the little mini drones that are out there. I've bought one that auto follow you. You just kind of set the orientation and start running, and it'll follow you and shoot video. And they've got tripods that are self-following now or auto-following. So much that we can do in the world of speed golf to get more eyeballs on it, to get more people excited about it. So thank you, Brad, for everything that you're doing for fitness, health, and wellness in that community, what you're doing for the world of speed golf, and trying to make an impact on the future of the game of golf. We feel like this is the direction that the game needs to go. It needs to speed up in order to stay relevant in this day and age. And so we sure appreciate everything that you're doing, and we do look forward to having you back on the show.
Guys, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to see this thing pop up, and I've listened to all the shows now that have been published, so I'm all over it. Thanks. Keep it up.
Awesome, man. All right, episode 10 in the books. Man, we did it. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Brad Kearns. Definitely don't let this be the last connection you have with Brad. Check out his publishing company's website. It's primalblueprintpublishing.com. All of his books are there. I personally been on a high-carb vegan diet for almost 4 years now, and I love it. But the information I've gleaned from our conversations is compelling enough for me to want to dig into the primal philosophy a little bit more. I want to see what's in there for me. So there might be something in there for you as well. As he mentioned, you can follow him online at bradkearns.com. That's BradKearns.com. He's also on Twitter at Bradley Kearns, and you can contact him through his website as well. And, of course, like I said before, be sure to check out his podcasts over at Primal Blueprint and Primal Endurance on iTunes. Now, how can you support our efforts? We put a lot of hours, a lot of time, a lot of effort into bringing you groundbreaking podcasts with game changers, thought leaders, pioneers in the golf world. So, what can you do? Well, it's a few simple things. One, follow us on Facebook at /PaceOfChange and Twitter at PaceOfChangePod. Visit our website, paceofchange.com. Sign up for our newsletter there. It's going to keep you up to speed on the latest POC podcast news, announcements, updates, and soon, product offers. Hey, also please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you're listening on iTunes, you can make the biggest difference. Help us by subscribing and leaving a review. It only takes a few minutes, but it helps us reach so many more people. Remember, every action you take above, it makes a bigger difference than you can imagine. So thank you in advance for taking the time to do that. Now, how else can we serve you, the listener? What other topics would you like to hear about? Who in the world of golf would you like us to interview? We'll give them a call. We'll make it happen. Leave your comments on social media and know that we value your feedback. All right, guys, thanks for hanging in there. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. We look forward to seeing you next week. So until then, pick up the pace. We'll see you for episode 11.